5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ellison, and I will be your host for tonight's senatorial town hall. I have some special guests with us tonight who we're going to have some discussion on the issues that matter. A lot of the questions that have come in through a survey, and the panelists are going to be asking some of the questions, and I'm going to turn around and ask the panelists some questions. And so we're going to get a chance to see what I'm about, see who I am, see what makes me tick, and take some questions from the audience. So again, my name is Ellison. I am running for the United States Senate to represent Florida's interests. And a little bit about me, I grew up in Hardee County, which is a small county in Central Florida. I was raised there. My mother, she was a person who taught individuals with disabilities. My father was a minister, and so I kind of grew up with a sense of purpose. The very first lesson that I learned in life was from my father, which is very important, and it had to do with understanding that everyone has a gift. And I understood that my gift at a very early age was the gift of helping others. And so it's there where I am at my best when I'm doing that, because there is manifestations that take place, and it's something that I feel very good about doing. And I always look to see who I can help in a run of a day. So I couldn't think of a better career path to be in than to be that of a servant leader in our government, so that I can actually write policy to make impact for so many people with the same level of effort that I do every day, helping people with individual issues and individual concerns. And so from my mother, I gained a sense of what it is to be able to look past a person's disabilities to recognize their abilities. And I grew up in this small place called Hardee County. A lot of people know it for its citrus, its orange trees and cattle. But for me, it's a place that I call home. It's where I learned a lot about life and a lot about hard work. I grew up cutting hair as a hobby because one time I needed a haircut for the 5th grade banquet. And where I'm from, there wasn't any ethnic barbershops to go to. So I ended up getting my dad's clippers and taking them to my head, and actually messed my haircut up so bad that they started calling me Patches when I was in the 5th grade, because I had so many patches in the back of my head. But doing that, I really did enjoy it. And so I continued to do it. I have 3 younger brothers. I continued to do their hair. I messed their hair up so much that whenever they would see me coming, they would start crying because they knew that they were going to get a really bad haircut. But I got pretty good with it. And as I got into like the 7th grade, my dad, he invested in a really nice set of clippers. And so I got pretty good with it. By 8th grade, he bought me a barber chair, and a lot of the people at the church, they started coming to the house, and I started cutting their hair, getting better and better. By the time I got in 9th grade, I was already cutting the principal's hair in the principal's office, and pretty much anyone that needed a haircut. So I cut the football team, the basketball team, the band. I cut hair inside of the classroom while the teachers were actually teaching. I would be in the back of the classroom cutting hair. And that took me through my high school years. And so by the time I graduated high school, I was already ready to go into the field of cosmetology. So in 2000, I graduated with my certification in cosmetology. There is where I met my wife, Samantha, Dr. Ellison. And together we have a beautiful daughter. Her name is Ellison. And, you know, from there, I decided to go back to school. So I went back to school for education in business. And I took a class, American government class. And the professor, the way he talked about policy and how to impact people, it really inspired me. So I ended up changing my major from education to political science. And then I ended up transferring from South Florida State College to Florida Southern College. And there, my wife and I, we attended that school. I ended up graduating in 2007 with my degree in political science. And from there, we both moved to Washington, where she went to medical school at Howard University. And I continued to work as a barber, but I also did some work as an advocate on the Hill. And so I got my experience advocating for people as well as nonprofit organizations in the realm of economic development, as well as water-related issues. So whenever we ended up leaving, I decided to come back here to Florida to make a stand in this political arena here. And so I came, I ran for office, and I didn't do so well, but it gave me an opportunity to get my feet wet in the political arena. And then in 2018, a young lady by the name of April Freeman, she ended up passing away, and actually 30 days before the election. So a lot of people started calling me and asking me, Alan, you should put your name in the hat. And so I did. I ended up running against 3 other candidates. I received 52% of the vote. And then I advanced to the general election to face then State Senator Greg Stubbe, who was running for the congressional seat. And I only had 28 days to mount up a campaign. So we did pretty good. We got nearly 40% of the vote, 117,000 votes. And my name wasn't on the ballot, but we did very well. And so we are now moving forward to run for this Senate seat. And I say we because it's not about me, it's about all of us and how we work together to bring positive change to this state. So we are running for the United States Senate against Marco Rubio, who is a current seat holder for Florida's Senate seat. And we're just looking to make a difference. And so we wanted to have this town hall so that people can get a chance to understand my background, as well as some of the things that people are thinking about here in Florida. I believe that the best way to run a campaign is to run a campaign on the issues and have them be organic. And what that means is that there are real issues that affect everyday people throughout the state. And what we will find out is that throughout the state, there are different issues that affect people differently throughout each county. And there are 76 counties in the state of Florida. So it's a massive district, massive state to run in. And we're ready for the challenge. We believe that we have what it takes. When I ran my campaign, it was the largest congressional district in the state of Florida. From one county to the next, to the last county, it was about a 3-hour drive. So it's a massive district. So campaigning in such a large territory is not new to me. I'm definitely ready for it. And I hope you're ready for what we're getting ready to do. And so at this time, what I would like to do is to turn it over to our panelists. And they're basically going to ask me some questions. And then I guess in the end, I will ask them some questions about, what it's like, what it would be like for them to have a senator that would represent their interests. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. How are you doing today, Sarah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for being here with us.
I'm going to take the ladies first approach and ask the gender question from the beginning. Do you believe that there is a gender pay gap, and do you believe in gender pay equality?
First of all, I do believe in gender pay equality. I think that it's a real issue in our country right now. I think that when you look at it, there is about a woman in this country generates about 78 cents on the dollar for same work as a man. And for women of color, it's even less. I think it's somewhere around 69 cents on the dollar for the same work as a man. And when you think about the fact that in this country, most of our households are led by women, it actually puts them at a severe disadvantage in terms of trying to raise a family. When you think about the cost of education, when you think about the cost of living, when you think about what's going on in our society with COVID-19 and job loss, it's a real bad problem, and it's one of the things that I would definitely like to work on to make sure that women are getting paid equal pay for equal work. It's only right. So thank you for that question.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes, Gary.
Okay. Over the last 4 years, Donald Trump has obviously fueled a lot of division, including in this state. Here in District 7, we have a congressman who to this day does not acknowledge that Joe Biden has won the election. It's very divisive. It's divisive based on ideology, divisive based on demographics, it's on color, all kinds of things. How do you envision that you can bridge some of those gaps to temper people that are already going to be set against putting a Democrat, let alone a minority, into the Senate in the state of Florida?
Yes, thank you very much, Gary, for your question. The thing is that a lot of the division, whether it's political division or social division that's taking place in our state and in our country, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have leaders at the top that are not speaking to the unity that we should engage in. Their conversations are very partisan. Their conversations are very divisive. Their talk is tearing people apart. I know for a fact that there are people that grew up together, and because of politics, they are no longer living with one another. They're no longer friends. People are losing Facebook friends left and right. And so I think the conversation and the narrative and how we approach one another, how we approach the conversation in politics, it needs to change. And the fact of the matter is that if we continue to use more terms of inclusiveness and inclusion, we can start to turn the narrative for a lot of people. So for example, most of your politicians, they're public servants, but people call them leaders because people listen to what they say. If we could change the conversation, if we can lead on unity and inclusion and just make it a standard in how we communicate in this country, people will start to follow those leaders and how they conduct themselves. But we first have to make sure that we are voting for the right leaders. Oftentimes, people like to vote for politicians based on how they look, the surface stuff, how beautiful their spouses are, if they're saying the right speaking points. But what we should be looking at is, does this candidate actually have a plan, a viable plan to bring about these solutions that we need on these pressing issues? Do they care? Because caring is everything. You have to actually care. And the best way that you can tell if these people care is to look in their history. If they have a history of doing good things for people, bringing people together, then when they're in politics, when they're in leadership, they're going to continue to do the things that they've been doing. But if they've been suing people and getting sued and stepping over people to get to the top, when they get in politics, they're going to continue to do those things. And I think if you look at the history of our president, Donald Trump, you will see that what he has done in this country is no different than what he has always done his entire life. And so we need to start looking a little deeper at these leaders. We need to look at their history and what they have done, because it will give us a clue to who they are going to be in politics. And so the narrative has to change, but it starts with us. We have to pick the right leaders, and we have to hold them accountable to make sure that they're speaking the right language, the language of love. And so that's how we mend the division in this country. It starts at the top, and it starts with us.
Well, if I could give you a little bit of advice, because I'm prejudicial, I love you, and I absolutely agree with your message. I think that we would need for you to take a playbook, and you have to go into the lion's den to give that message. It's not as important to give me the message or our fellow Democrats. You still have to give us that message, but you have to go into the villages. You have to go into Port Charlotte. You have to get to in front of the Republicans, the people that are naturally going to want to side against you because they don't know you. That's the basis for distrust, is not knowing somebody. And so I just want to give you that advice. It's enough to have the right message, but we have to take the message into the lion's den for it to be heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. You know, it's even more than having the right message. It's also about having the right disposition. And so because that is a foundational aspect of who I am, I don't mind going into the villages. I don't mind going into these places because I know who I am. And I believe that we have more in common than not. I'm a bridge builder. I believe in building bridges. I don't believe in building walls. And if you think about the only man-made object that you can see from the moon is the Great Wall of China. It took them 100 years to build it. And when it was complete, they found out that it didn't work because people can go over it and people can go under it. So we need to be in the business of building bridges because not only do we have the opportunity to put people back to work through building bridges, but we also have an opportunity to mend a lot of fences and heal the social divide in this country. So thank you very much, Gary, for that question.
Hi, this is Caesar. First, I want to start off by saying thank you for the invitation, for being here. I'm honored and privileged to be able to speak to you in regards to issues that matter our community. As an advocate of the Hispanic community, I do have an important question, something that we learned a little bit about in this past election cycle, mostly on the presidential level, but it also impacted a lot of local politics. And we all know all politics is local. A lot of Rubio's constituents have this illusion that Democrats are all socialists. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your plans or strategies to overcome that awful branding that's just not true?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. A lot of his constituents and really people around the country that subscribe to the Republicans' narrative about Democrats. The Republicans have done a very good job at branding Democrats that way. One of the problems that I believe the Democratic Party has had is they haven't had very strong branding or messaging that can counter some of those branding tactics. I have a very strong background in marketing, PR, communications. And the fact of the matter is that we have to go on the offensive and we have to begin to rebrand the Democratic Party and let people know that it is the Democratic Party that is really about improving the quality of life for all citizens, not just the people in our party. The other thing that I want people to understand is that we have the oldest written constitution in the world. Our Constitution is 233 years old. There has only been 27 amendments to the Constitution. And so the reality is that our system of government, which is basically a republic and a democracy, a democratic republic, it's been around forever, you know, and at least as long as America has been in existence. Democrats are not socialists. We're Democrats, and those two are completely different. We believe in making sure that each and every citizen in this country has the best quality of life possible, and we try to enact that through our policies. Policies like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security benefits, disability benefits, Pell Grant, things like that. And so when you look around and you ask yourself, some of the benefits that you receive, you have to ask, where did these benefits come from? And that's the thing I want people to understand, because not too many times will people be able to quickly identify policy and how it impacts their life. And that's why I always say that whether you're a Democrat, whether you're independent or Republican, we all have more in common than not. And so our strategy is simple. It's about educating the public. We believe that if we continue to educate the public about who we are as Democrats, who we are as progressives, who we are as the party that has really always been about improving the quality of life for everyone, I think it's a message that will transcend party lines, and I think it will tear down the walls, and I think it will most definitely break down those branding tactics by the Republican Party.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this question is from one of our members of the live audience. The audience member asks, what are your priorities, and do you think they're the ones that people need help with?
Like I said before, I wanted this campaign to be organic, and what that means is we asked a lot of questions, we sent out surveys, and we're holding town hall meetings, which is something that you won't see too many U.S. Senate candidates doing. But the purpose of that is to listen, for me to listen, for me to learn, and for me to develop my platform. And so through surveys, through my previous campaigns and the largest congressional district, I have found that depending on where you go, depending on which county you're in, those theme issues will be different. But overall, I would say the two biggest issues have come within the last, I would say, 9 months, and that's COVID-19 and its impact on American citizens and Floridians, as well as the jobless claim due to a lot of these corporations going out of business and a lot of small businesses basically having to shut down. So right now, the top priorities are to make sure that people are socially distancing themselves so that we can bring down those numbers, making sure that these vaccines are viable, that they work, and that people get access to them. Also making sure that for those individuals who need a job, that we can help get them a job, that we can create jobs. And if they can't get a job, then we need to work with them to be able to start a business so that not only they can have a job for themselves, but they can create jobs for other people. We have to look at this from a perspective that it is an American problem, not just the Floridian problem, but it's an American problem. And we need an American recovery plan that is viable, that is sustainable, and that can basically move us towards a more prosperous future. Did I answer all of the questions there?
The second part of the question was, are they the ones that people need help with? But I think you answered that by talking about the surveys that you guys collected in the beginning.
Yeah, so there are a lot of issues, but I think we will get into some of those issues. But right now, those are the two main issues. And as we have this conversation, we will go deeper into some of the other ones. Who's
if next? I may jump, I'll jump right in
okay.
to fill in the air gap. So President Trump, while we can celebrate that soon, we'll be talking about him in the past tense. There's some things in the past that he said that was very hurtful to a large part of this community. And I wanted to get your take on when he referred to veterans as losers and suckers, and how your opponent stood silent when that happened. I wanted to get your perspective, and what would you say and what would you do to heal those wounds of how this administration treated veterans such as myself.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And I want to thank each and every service member for their service, and all of the veterans that have fought in wars and conflicts. I take my hat off to you. You are not losers and suckers, and that was the comment that the president made. I was appalled by the silence of our senators, our House of Representative members that stayed silent on his comments. The most patriotic thing that you can do in this country is to serve your country. It's the most patriotic thing that anyone could do. And to know that we have people that have put their lives on the line to fight for our rights, to fight for the civil liberties that we enjoy, to protect us from foreign and domestic threats, to call them losers and suckers, I was taken back by it. Also, I was thinking about some of the veterans that are suffering with post-traumatic stress syndrome and living in a COVID environment, and how the stress of COVID has impacted their post-traumatic stress. Also, I was thinking about the fact that there are over 18 up to 22 veterans a day committing suicide. To hear the President of the United States say that, it really hit me really hard. And it left me with the question of how could anybody support a man that was a draft dodger, became the President of the United States, and could not only say something like that about our veterans, but also allow a foreign dictator to place bounties on the heads of our soldiers that are stationed in Afghanistan and do nothing. And the fact that a lot of our Republican members of Congress and senators like Marco Rubio, Greg Steube, who are here in Florida, who represent Florida's interests, Rick Scott, who represent Florida's interests, to know that they said nothing and stayed silent on the issue, I am appalled at that. And I hope that people that are listening to this can understand that if you don't have a representative or a senator that will look out for your interests, then why even vote for a person like that? You need to have people that not only look out for your interests, but will stand up to people who are putting you down and making you become lower than the standard that you hold in life. And so, you know, that's how I feel about it. I thought it was a crying shame, actually.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'd like to change the tack just a little bit. Here in Southwest Florida, we're already having red tide being reported off the coast of Lee County. It's been an ongoing issue for a decade or so. Water quality in Florida is a mess. But the way I'm going to phrase this question also touches on the pandemic itself too. One of the problems we have is a very significant portion, particularly it's a very significant portion of the people that support Trump, believe that the world is only 5,781 years old. They reject science. Yet we often say that science is where we have to look towards, whether it's to solve the pandemic. A lot of these people do not believe in the vaccine or believe in vaccinations to begin with, or in the red tide. So how do you get a significant portion of the population to at least temper this very virulent attitude towards science, and allow the policy of the government to come up with appropriate solutions to protect our environment and our health?
Well, that's a very comprehensive question, and thank you for it. I believe that, like I said earlier, it's based on who we elect and the conversation and the language and the rhetoric that they use. I believe moving forward, we're going to have more representatives and more senators once we win Georgia and Florida who understand science. And now that we have a president-elect and a vice president-elect who understand science, we're going to get to a point where the conversation will begin to change, because I believe it's policy, and I believe it's leadership, and the messaging that comes across leadership that has a lot to do with the perspectives of people. And so once we kind of change the tone of leadership and the messaging, a lot of that's going to change. But when you think about here in Florida and the red tide issue, the blue-green algae issue, the big polluters, a lot of Floridians, whether they're Democrat, Independent, or Republican, they pretty much agree that we need safe, clean, fresh drinking water. And we need to make sure that our beaches and our lakes are clear of blue-green algae and red tide. And so it's one of those things that when the issue hits home and it starts to have an effect on the citizens, they will get on board with the right course of action. And when it comes to the red tide issue, I know for a fact that a lot of my Republican brothers and sisters and constituents, they're on the same page. They know that something needs to be done. I remember in a debate that I had with a congressman a couple of years ago, he didn't believe that red tide was something that man could do something about. He thought it was all natural. He thought that it was something that, you know, God controlled and this and that. But I believe that there are a lot of factors, man-made factors, that aid in the development of red tide, as well as blue-green algae that is affecting our lakes, affecting our tourist industry, our beaches. And so they serve as irritants to the eyes for some. They serve as irritants to the lungs of people who have come here to live out their days. And so whenever they are affected by that, they definitely want viable leadership to move forward effectively and expeditiously on the issue. Unfortunately, leadership in Florida has not gotten the message. And that is one of the reasons why I am running, because we need to have strong leadership on this issue. A lot of people around the country might not know how bad it is here in Florida, but we have big polluters who are literally pouring tons of waste directly into our aquifer. And so that people really understand this issue. Out of all the water that exists in the world, the earth is covered in 3/4 water. But out of all of that water, only 1% of it is fresh drinking water. So we must do everything in our power to make sure that we hold these big polluters accountable, as well as to make sure that our waters and our beaches are safe and clean.
But that's part of the challenge, because here in Southwest Florida, we have voted into Congress and we acknowledge these issues, but we have voted into Congress a congressman who on multiple occasions has wanted to do away with the EPA, for example.
Yes.
So the problem is that, yes, we can say as constituents, we agree and acknowledge this problem, but when we go to the booth, it seems like many of us vote party first rather than what the real issue is. And that's the challenge that we need to break.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. But when it comes to the reasons that people vote for representatives like that, it's usually not based on water related issues. It's usually based on some of the other issues. And so I think the biggest challenge is going to be to raise enough awareness on these issues, as well as to raise enough awareness on how leadership has handled these issues. And once people begin to realize, because, you know, for the most part, the average person think that water is a commodity that comes very easily and it's very plentiful. But when people begin to understand that out of all the water is only one of it is fresh drinking water, then the issue becomes more real to them. And then they will start to realize, you know what, maybe I do need to choose a representative who understands this issue, or a senator who will actually take action to hold these big polluters accountable. And so, you know, there's a lot of education, and campaigning is about educating. So we're gonna do a lot to educate the public on these issues, but we're gonna do a lot to educate the public on how leadership has failed them on these issues.
All right, gentlemen, before I ask the next question, the producer has asked that each of you check your chat box, please. And then I'll move on to the next question to Alan. This is actually a question we got in advance and one that came in on the live questions this evening. And it's about your ability to defeat Rubio. And both questioners want to know, do you think that you have a better chance or a good chance of being able to defeat him, considering that you were able to get an early start?
I believe that we have a very good chance at defeating Rubio because I asked a simple question, and that is, can you tell me a piece of legislation that Senator Rubio has passed that has had a direct impact on your life? I sent that out the other day, and I think it got about 150,000 impressions, but out of all of those impressions, no one could seem to tell me anything positive that has impacted their life. I believe in writing policies that have direct impact in everyone's life. And so the fact that we have started this campaign as early as we have basically taken over the Retire Rubio movement. This is a movement that was in place before I decided to run. And it is one that is national. So there are millions of Americans that are really ready to see Marco Rubio take a seat. And some people want him to take two. I'm one of those individuals. And I happen to want to do this for so many reasons. One, because in Florida, we really need someone who can represent all people. We really need someone who is not using Trump's divisive tactics. We really need someone who can look at the issues across the board and be able to come up with policy positions and bills that will have not only statewide impact on our citizens, but national impact that increases and improves the quality of life for all of our citizens. So yes, I absolutely believe that we are in a position to unseat him. Right now, support is coming in across the country. And I'm excited about this. I know just this week, we've seen that he may be getting primaried by Ivanka Trump as well as Roger Stone. So the race is getting a little bit more interesting. I welcome all of that because I just believe that if they jump in, they're going to tear each other apart and give us so much ammunition, more than what we already have. But I'm very excited about this and actually humbled by the opportunity to not only run this race to win this seat, but also use this platform to bring a lot of awareness to the issues that literally go untalked about and unnoticed by a lot of our leaders in Congress.
Do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
You mentioned the Retire Rubio movement, and that was actually one of the topics that we got a question on. And the constituent wants to know, what are you offering to build this movement and to make it sustainable and ultimately to secure a victory in 2022?
Well, basically, this movement needed someone to face Rubio. Of course, Americans across the country want him to be retired, but there wasn't anyone willing to put their name into the hat. So once we put our name into the hat, we ended up securing a lot of support. A lot of people are supporting us because they want him gone, but day by day, people are starting to buy into my vision for the future. And what that looks like is basically messaging that transcends party lines. We are looking at putting together plans and policy that literally have positive impact for everyone across the board. The other thing is that we're going to be doing a lot of educating, and we're going to be very aggressive on the ground in terms of our voter registration activities, as well as making sure that each and every citizen has a voice. Again, you won't see Marco Rubio holding town hall meetings like this, trying to listen to you and find out what issues matter most to you. We're going to be doing these town halls every month. Even when I'm senator, we're going to continue to do this because things change, and I want to be on the forefront of what's affecting my constituents. I believe that it is important to do this, and I believe that once you empower the voters, once you give them a voice and let their voices be heard, I believe that the empowerment, the education, it is sustainable all on its own. I remember when I graduated in political science back in 2007, I was the only political science major to graduate that year out of about 3,000 graduates. I remember not very many people were that tuned in to politics, but when Obama ran, everybody kind of just like came on board and started watching the news, wanted to see what he was going to say next. And I got a chance to see a migration of people that were once not very interested to now they're super interested. So it's very interesting to see people become empowered, people become more knowledgeable. And I believe that an educated voter makes for a better voter because they're going to vote for the best possible candidates. So our platform and our theme is always going to be about educating, and it's going to be about empowering people because that's what's going to sustain this movement. We've already seen so many people come aboard in terms of volunteers, so many people sending in their donations, so many people wanting to be a part of this movement that are not in this state, literally from every single state. And it's a very powerful and humbling experience for me.
Okay. I'd like to chime in if I may.
Yes.
Question. One of the horrific issues that has occurred over the course of our recent history that I think is also very germane to the Senate battles that are going on to Georgia. It was with the unfortunate death of George Floyd, but I think even more so for me personally, Ahmaud Arbery, who was literally hunted down while he was jogging in the neighborhood by a former police officer. And I'm speaking as a former vice mayor of Punta Gorda that took a direction even prior to these events that I think we should take in the future. And I would just like to see your response. So a lot of people are waving the flag to defund the police. I think that's a bad choice of words. I would wish that what they really mean is to repurpose the police. When you hire young policemen today, they're frequently coming out of the military. They're trained as soldiers, not as policemen. They're not trained to be able to deal with mental health issues if they're being asked to Baker Act individuals. And they're really not the persons that are doing that. And in Punta Gorda, they have extensively over the last 5 years have been doing that, hiring young police officers, typically out of the military, and training them on how to tone things down rather than to put them on the ground and put a throat in them. How do you feel about, do you feel we should be defunding? Should we be repurposing? How do you feel how we should be dealing with these issues in the future as a Floridian and also as an American?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question. And, I just want to say it was unfortunate what happened to our brothers Ahmaud and George Floyd. The thing is that we have a really bad problem in this country when it comes to police brutality and when it comes to the relationships between law enforcement and communities of color. We definitely need to work to bridge that gap. When it comes to law enforcement and how they are trained, as I said earlier, I grew up cutting hair. Currently, I am a cosmetologist and I am an owner and operator of a salon and spa here in Highlands County. When I went to school for for hair and beauty and stuff like that. It took me a year to get my training. It is unfortunate that as a cosmetologist, I have to endure more training than a law enforcement officer has to endure in terms of them becoming a police officer or a sheriff officer or deputy. I believe that the average police officer is receiving about 6 months worth of training. And in those 6 months, there are a lot of different modules, which means that they're actually spending even less time on certain issues as it relates to how they approach people. When you think about how police approach people, and I know this because I've actually gone through a police academy, they are trained to approach a situation from the position of an authority. They are trained to meet force with greater force. And so if you pull out a knife, they're gonna pull out a gun. It's just the way that they're trained. The problem with that is that if you come onto the scene and you are dealing with someone who might be erratic, if you are not aware, or if you haven't been properly trained, that this person might be dealing with autism, or this person might have a mental disability, then when you approach this person, they are not going to respond in the way that you may think that they should respond. And that could end in a fatality. In the same situation, they may approach a person who may be deaf and can't hear. And for whatever reason, this person is irate. This person may have just had a bad situation happen to them, and they are angry and upset. And when the officer comes to the scene and starts giving commands, that person can't hear them and probably can't read lips. That can end in a fatality. It may be a situation where an African-American male is on the scene and dealing with some issues. And when the officer comes to that particular individual, ready to subdue him, ready to force him with verbal commands to do something, that individual may be dealing with a level of stress and fear of that officer, that if he does comply, he may end up shot or strangled or a knee to the neck or whatever these cases have shown in our American history. It creates a situation where law enforcement definitely needs to be trained. So I don't agree with the notion or the campaign to defund the police. I believe that police should receive funding so that they can get proper training. I think that the training should be more extensive. I think it should be more training on race relations, because in America, we have a very strained relationship between communities of color and law enforcement. And so we have to consider that. One of the things that Congress has done to address this issue is they have put together what is known as the Justice in Policing bill. And that was a bill that was put together by Democratic members of the House. Representative Greg Stubbe, who is in District 17, the gentleman that I ran against in a previous election, he's also a Florida representative. He's one of the many Republican representatives who actually voted against this bill. And what this bill does is it actually holds law enforcement officers accountable. So if they should do something like that, they would be placed on a national registry where everybody can see it, so that if they did something like that and got fired, they can't just go to another state and get the same job doing the same types of things, because there has to be a level of accountability, but it also has to be a level of transparency. And so that's what the Justice in Policing Act does. And it's unfortunate that members of the Senate have blocked it. Mitch McConnell, it's on his desk, and he's not trying to move forward. So it becomes very important that we win Georgia's senatorial elections, and then in 22 we win Florida's Senate election, so that we can be the tiebreaker for our Senate so that we can get bills like that passed and we can hold law enforcement accountable. And once there's a level of accountability, then we can have better relations. But as long as there's no accountability, relations are always going to be strained. But I don't agree with defund the police.
I'd like to point out, during my tenure as a council member in Punta Gorda, we had a police officer who had a problematic past that was hired by the Punta Gorda Police Department. And it unfortunately resulted during the demonstration, the death of a citizen. That was kind of the wake-up call for Punta Gorda, and why our new chief, Davis, has spent a lot of time specifically training and continual training, by the way. It's not 6 months and you're gone. Everybody is going through these programs on a routine and regular basis. So I would just say that when you get a chance, come back to Punta Gorda, let me introduce you to our chief and show you an example of how a police force that is 30+% of color is defending a 99%, is keeping safe a 99% white community. I think it's an interesting dynamic, and thank you.
Yeah, I think also it's very interesting to note that when you look at this issue in America, it is very bad. And when you have people like Colin Kaepernick, who was trying to raise awareness on it, he caught so much flack from so many people. The fact of the matter is that in European countries, you don't have this same issue. The one factor that we know of is the fact that in European countries, police officers have to go to school for at least a year and have a degree before they even apply for to become a police officer. So if you are being trained for a year, it gives you more time to learn about all of these issues and be better prepared to be on the force. The other thing is, I think that we need to take a look at how law enforcement officers are screened. There have been cases where members of the KKK have made it onto the police force. And so when you have people that have implicit bias or prejudice in their hearts, in their minds, and they get into positions of power, they will abuse that power. They will do things that will show that they have this implicit bias. And so a more rigorous screening process would also help this issue.
I'm going to jump right in, sir. And I want to ask a question that is a very sensitive topic in the hearts and minds of the Hispanic community. And now that we see, and I'm really hoping that Rubio gets primaried, because that'll take away, that would give you the opportunity to kind of address the Hispanic community with respect to immigration. I really would like to know what your stance is, because we have a lot of people, we have a lot of things that's affecting our community, from temporary protection status, from DACA being kicked down the street and not being addressed, and both sides from on the Democratic and Republican Party talking about the immigration needs to be reformed, but nobody actually does anything. And of course, those poor children who apparently lost their parents and they can't find where they are to reunite those families. So this is really effective to the Hispanic Americans who are here, and they're stressed out about it, and they're going to use their voting power to make sure that they put a senator in place that can help alleviate some of that stress that we're feeling as a Hispanic community. So what's your position on the immigration? Where do you think that we fell short, and how can you contribute to that?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question. When it comes to immigration, I feel like this. First of all, it's a shame that Senator Marco Rubio hasn't taken a leadership position on this issue, being that he is, his parents came here as immigrants. He's a recipient of the American dream that so many people that have come here and want to come here is looking to take part of. And so based on that, I want to say this. We have a humanitarian crisis in this country when it comes to immigration. Right now, we have as many as 3,000 babies who are literally away from their mothers and their parents. They're in cages. When you think about the fact that if you take a child away from its parent at that age, between the ages of like 7 months to 3 years of age, these are human babies who are in the process of their brain development. These babies are stressed out. Can you imagine you being taken away from your parent at that age in a foreign country where you know literally no one? The stress on these children are so bad that it's equivalent to the post-traumatic stress that our soldiers are experiencing when they do 3 tour duties. The stress is so bad on developing brains that it literally destroys the dendrites in the brain, and the dendrites are the cells that are responsible for long-term memory. So we are actually harming these babies, both emotionally and physically. And then you think about the turmoil that their parents are in, knowing that their babies are somewhere in a cage or whatever. They don't even know where they are most of the times, but to think about what must be going through their mind, America should be ashamed. And one of the things that I want to do as a senator is I want to put together a package that brings these families back together. But also I want to look at the fact that you have people who are literally trying to escape countries where they are running from sex trafficking, where they're running from gang violence, where they're running from extreme poverty. They're running from all types of situations that are so bad that they are looking for asylum in this country. And so whenever you think about people who are trying to escape that and they finally make it to America, they are being victimized by our government even more by being placed in conditions like that. So the question comes up, well, how come they don't come in legally? Well, the legal aspect of coming into America and becoming a citizen is a process that I would like to work on. It needs to be streamlined. It is ridiculous for people to have to wait 8 years to become a citizen in this country. That is absolutely ridiculous. And for poor families who are trying to escape extreme poverty and people that are trying to get away from prostitution and gang violence and sex trafficking and slavery, for these people to try to come here to have to pay as much as $5,000 for an application. And if they're a family of 2, 3, 4, or 5, that's $5,000 per application. And a lot of Americans are not aware that a lot of these attorneys are charging these individuals that kind of money. So we need to have a streamlined process on how much they can be charged for citizenship in the United States. We need to have an expedited process to make it where people shouldn't have to wait 8 years to become a citizen. I just talked to a lady just yesterday who told me that she had to wait 10 years to become a citizen. And she finally did it after 10 years, and she's going to be voting for me in 2022. So I'm very excited about that. But back to these people who are coming here, we need to make sure that asylum seekers are not being continued to become victims by our government. Right now at the World Court, there are cases of neglect, abuse. Coronavirus is running rampant inside of these facilities. We have people that have claimed to have been physically assaulted, both sexually assaulted and emotionally, verbally abused in these detention centers. And we can't get members of Congress access to be able to go into a facility that was paid for by tax dollars and regulated by the Congress, because we have a president who is not standing up for the people, who is not standing up for humanity. And I'm hopeful that when Joe Biden takes office, President-elect Joe Biden takes office, that we will have even more support on this issue. But so far we have zero support from our delegation from Florida's leadership. And it's something that I believe that we can win on. It's something that we have a plan for. And when I'm Senator of the state of Florida for the United States, it's something that we will definitely be putting forward to bring resolutions on these issues.
Okay, I have another question from the audience. This is about the Democratic platform going into 2022. The questioner asked, Joe Biden won because he never wavered from the platform. Nikki Fried said the issue for Florida Democratic candidates with 2020 was that they didn't align their platform. And she said that her success was from her non-wavering platform. First of all, do you agree with that characterization? And also, what is the Democratic platform going into 2022?
I believe the Democratic platform should be about improving the quality of life for everyone. The Democratic platform, because we are the party that cares about the people, we care about a lot of issues, but oftentimes those issues kind of get muddied up and they kind of get lost in the shuffle. One of the things the Republican Party has done very well at, and that is streamline their issues. I believe the Democratic Party should streamline the issue and let people know that it is our party that has been there for them. It has been there on Social Security. It has been there on disability. It has been there on healthcare. It has been there on education. It has literally been there on every issue that has had a positive impact on the quality of life of all Americans. That's as simple as I can make it, and that is what the party platform should be about, and people won't be confused. As far as why Democrats didn't do as well, I'm talking about Democratic candidates, the reason they didn't do as well in the state of Florida that President Biden did across the nation is because Democrats, we are the party who cares about people. And when coronavirus hit, a lot of Democratic candidates stopped doing things like canvassing. They stopped doing things like voter registration. They stopped doing the door knocking because they didn't want to become a patient. They didn't want to transfer a possible COVID-19 to people who we were trying to reach. So a lot of candidates across the state actually pulled back and went to virtual campaigns. And the reality is that most people feel like if the person will come to them, shake their hand, and ask for their vote in person, that's usually who's going to win that person's vote. And so the reality is this, is that when Democrats backed away from those in-person activities, the Republicans never stopped. In the state of Florida, we out-registered Republicans 3-1 between 2018 up until about 8 months ago. We were leading Republicans 3-1. By the time coronavirus got underway and we went into the shutdown mode, Republicans surpassed us 8 months ago, and they continued to walk away from us in terms of voter registration, canvassing, door knocking, and in-person events. And so that is the result of what the elections look like in 2020. But I don't believe that in 2022, we're going to be faced with COVID-19. And so we will get back on our game. We will continue to be more aggressive than ever before. We will educate the public. We will be very aggressive on voter registrations. As you can see, what the success of what Stacey Abrams was able to do in Georgia, we will duplicate those efforts here in Florida. And we hope that we can do the same thing across the country. As a leader in this party, as a senatorial candidate, looking to represent the interests of the American people and the people of Florida, it is something that I will definitely be talking to party leaders about and making sure that the simplified message about who we are and what we have accomplished on behalf of the American people will be at the forefront of the conversation.
Alan, I think you did a great job in answering the questions that are really important to us voters in the state of Florida. But I'm really curious, what are the issues that are near and dear to you, and what stands you out as the better candidate to become our next senator of this great state of Florida?
Well, to be honest with you, people ask me all the time, they say, Alan, what are your issues? And I say, I have a lot of issues, but it's not really about my issues. It's really about what your issues are. See, oftentimes we have it confused about what politicians should say and what they should stand for. But really, the only thing they should really stand for is what is important to the people. And the things that are important to the people are very diverse. But just to answer your question, the things that are kind of near and dear to my heart is the disabilities issue. And the reason being is because I have family members who are disabled. I have family members who have autism. I have family members who are trying to get disability benefits, and they have been denied year in and year out, and it causes a great deal of depression. The bills start mounting up, and there is no way out of the hole. My thing is, if a board certified physician has deemed you to be disabled, who are we in terms of policymakers and regulators and administrators? Who are we to deny you your right to disability benefits? I think that out of the 61 million Americans that live with a disability in this country, there are about 2.6 million of them right here in the state of Florida who live with a disability. And when you think about the caretakers, the mothers, the fathers of people with disabilities, these are the people that are indirectly affected. And the number becomes astronomical between the people who are directly affected by disabilities and the people who are indirectly affected. And it's something that you don't hear very many leaders talking about on this issue. And it's one that is near and dear to me. The other one that's very near and dear to me, and it's one that I've taken up as a platform issue that I will take into Congress and I will fight diligently on, is the fact that between 18 to 22 military veterans are committing suicide every single day. And COVID is only stressing that number out. And some people are actually committing suicide right in the parking lots of VA hospitals. I believe that if someone has gone to bat for you, it's only right that you go to bat for them. And I know for a fact that this bill that I have was taken to 80 members of Congress, 40 of which are veterans themselves, and not a single one of them put forth this bill to try to bring some resolve on curbing or ending veteran suicide in America. And I think it's a very important issue. And again, out of all of the things that you can do in this country to be patriotic, one of them is joining the military. But it's a shame to know that once you've served this country, when you come back, you don't get the same level of respect that you deserve, and you definitely don't have a lot of leaders who are going to fight for you. And so I'm always fighting for the underdog. It's part of who I am. It's my personality. It's my gift. I believe in helping people, and I will continue to operate in my gift and make positive changes for so many people. And that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
Alan, your campaign is so much about education and empowerment, but we are coming to the end of an election cycle, and people are going to start forgetting about politics for a while, so to speak. What is your plan on keeping constituents engaged and continuing to learn about government and civic engagement and politics through to the next election cycle, and making sure they're not just waiting until the next general election to think about politics again?
Well, we're going to continue to do events like this. We're going to probably focus on individual issues so that we can go into a lot more depth around those issues and educate people. we're going to be basically trying to give people the opportunity to be heard. And one of the things that I always like to do is I like to ask you all questions and find out what is most pressing on your mind. Like, what are the issues that keep you up at night? What are the things that make you want to be involved in the process? And I believe that when you start asking questions like that, and you give people the opportunity to voice their opinions and voice their concerns, it has a way of empowering them. And that level of empowerment is what's going to keep them engaged. And we're going to continue to educate them. And the educated voter is going to be a voter that's going to watch policy a little bit closer, because then they will start to learn that the issues that policymakers are putting forward are having a direct or indirect impact on their life. For example, if you work for 20, 30 years in your job and you decide to retire, you're going to want your Social Security. But to know that there are members of Congress that are trying to do away with that Social Security, that is something that's going to make you take a little bit more interest in the process. And so we want to keep people engaged, but we want to educate them so that they can have the foundational tools necessary to be able to not only engage, but also get involved with the process by running for office. I'm always trying to get people to run for office. We need more everyday people running for office. And if they do want to run for office, we want to be a resource to them, share data, share financial resources or whatever we can, because we need people who understand where we come from to represent your interests. Because I can't sit around any longer and allow those that don't understand where I come from to represent my interests and dictate the future of our lives. So I'm just a regular guy. I'm a country boy from Hardee County, Florida, looking to make a difference and use my gift. So at this point, what I would like to do is to ask each and every one of you, what would you like to see in terms of character, fitness, qualities? What would you like to see from a representative or a senator candidate and leader in this country? Sarah, I want to start with you.
I think the main thing that I'm looking for is a person who's actually a solutions person. So we have spent so long now just fighting over what our party affiliations are that nothing is getting done, and Americans are suffering as a direct result of that. And we really need leadership and representatives that can look past all of that, much in the way that you're doing, which is the reason I'm here, to be able to ask what is really going to change our lives for the better, and do the most good for the most people in our country. And I don't think that's what a lot of our current leadership is currently focused on.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Gary, you are a public servant yourself. You have held elected office. Before I go to you, I want to address a question I just seen came in here now. Offices that you could run for that we would definitely be helping people with would be state representative offices, mayor offices, county commissioner, city commissioners, congressional offices. Get involved in the process. You're going to learn this stuff once you get into it, but what you need to understand is that if you have a stance on an issue and you believe that you can rally people around those issues, trust me and believe me, there are people who think just like you on those issues. It's just a matter of building a coalition of people that you can move policy forward with. And so even if you don't win, at least you challenge the status quo. At least you get a chance to put your issue out there and give it some consideration in terms of the national spotlight or the statewide spotlight or even the county spotlight. You have to take a stand. One of the things that we put out was the 9-minute challenge when George Floyd died in 9 minutes. And the 9-minute challenge was, it only takes 9 minutes to register to vote. It takes 9 minutes to actually vote. It takes 9 minutes to actually inspire somebody through that action. And so we want to make sure that you do those things at least. But if you're so bold, please run for office. Gary, you ran for office, and I know you've had that question asked of you, but I'm asking you as a constituent now. What would you like to see from a senatorial leader? And what would you like to see from me on this campaign? What would you like to see happen? How can I best serve your interests in Congress?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to piggyback on something you just said, and I'd like to refer to Caesar's earlier comment about where he quoted Tip O'Neill, though unfortunately you didn't give him credit. All politics is local. Okay, anybody that's listening out there that hasn't gotten involved, I encourage you to get involved in the campaign. It's not in actually running for an office. It's a great adventure. You get to meet people. You get to meet them on a different level. You have to know who the skin, because some people are always going to be upset with you. But what you find is you'll even upset your friends. But if you're true to yourself and you're consistent, your friends always forgive you. So with that said, my frustration with the political climate today and the MAGA, Make America Great movement, as it perceives itself, is to me a erroneous illusion to what the 50s and 60s were about. And I blame my generation, the baby boomers, for being a little bit selfish and saying, what's in it for me, and wanting to return what we think we recall those days, the days of Ward Cleaver. Those weren't true days. Things were tumultuous at the time. And we, now that we're retired, we're fat and happy, and those of us that life has been very comfortable, we are afraid of people of color, people of diversity, and people of younger generations. We've got ours, we want to keep it. And my frustration, and what I would hope to be able to see in you, because I don't have to tell anybody what I think about you. That's been on my sleeve for quite some time. But that you would be able to put people of my generation at ease and trusting, so that we think more about our grandchildren than about ourselves. So I would want to see somebody that would be able to do that kind of inspiration, somebody that would be able to inspire me the way Tip O'Neill inspired me, the way Adlai Stevenson inspired my father, the way Martin Luther King also was able to inspire me in various things. That's what I would like to see out of a candidate, and I know you have those capabilities. I'd like to see you bring them forth and make them blossom.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your words. Mr. Ramirez.
Thank you. Well, I have to agree with what my colleague just mentioned, because I think, any manager can manage, but a leader does more than just manage managers. They also inspire people. And I think that some of the characteristics, and I'll be quite honest with you, I had them marked down and you checked off a lot of those boxes. So I'm really proud of being associated with you. But the one thing that I do look for in any senatorial candidate is the intricate skill of bringing people together for a common good. And I want to put air quotes around common good, because I don't think that is a partisan phrase. I think there's a lot of common good that either side can agree on, and we can work together. And in this climate that we just experienced in the past 4 years has been very divided. And this current administration, now outgoing, did such a job in dividing us that it's going to take more than just President-elect Biden to bring us together. It's going to take Congress. It's going to take people on a local level to bring us together. So that senator who we will elect has to be somebody who can inspire us to come back together under one flag. And that's really, out of all the things that we talked about today, policy oriented, to do to create that path to achieving those policies, but in maybe in a covert manner, do it in a way that it brings us all back together. And that, I think that that's going to be a critical characteristic for anybody who wants to sit and be called Senator so and so, is to be able to be a unifier for this country, not taking into consideration what this means for the blue, what this means for the red, for what it means for the red, white, and blue. So I think that that's what I look for in a candidate for Senate.
Thank you very much. Real quick, aside from immigration, what are two other issues that are most important to you?
Education,
Okay.
and from a dual perspective, education in being able to provide quality education. There was a time when, you know, the United States were in the top 3 of, and I don't think we're in the top 10 anymore. We need to get back there. So I think there needs to be a greater investment in STEM programs, especially in communities of color. But
Mhm.
also, I think that education has become also a financial burden on families that don't make a lot of money. So from that perspective too, education becomes a critical issue. There's many people out there that are choosing not to go to college because they're afraid of what their loans are going to look like after they graduate. We say that go to college and you'll get a great job so you can make a lot of money so that you could pay back your loans and live like an average person anyway, as if you didn't go to college. I know a lot of people that went to college, got their masters, and they don't get to buy a house until they're 30, so they're in their mid 30s, because they have that debt to income ratio that's just impacting their ability to even purchase the home, which is the American dream, right? 2-car garage, a home, a dog, 2.5 kids. I don't know where they get the half from, but but education is such an important investment that we can make to get us back to where we could be. There's enough money in this country where everybody could be well-to-do and not homeless and not hungry and not uneducated, and we could again be the pioneers of curing cancer, curing COVID, maybe in less time than we did, although this was pretty remarkable. So another very important issue for me, besides immigration and of course um, 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 and education, is also um, um, the law reform. To kind of change the laws where there's still people in jail that today would be considered misdemeanors, serving very long sentences.
Criminal
And I think
justice.
a lot of the jails are still very overcrowded with our brothers and sisters, where and a lot of that impact. So I'm all over the place when it comes to what are our issues, but I think my core issues is what's holding us down as a community, as a Black and brown community. What is preventing us from actually progressing further in the same rate so that we can catch up and we can actually enjoy the American dream. So those are things that I'm actually really, really concerned about.
Thank you very much. I'm with you 100%. I definitely believe that we need to make more investments into our educational system, especially trade programs. I'm a beneficiary of a trade program. And so I believe that we should make sure that, every high school has a trade program where people can learn skills that they can use in everyday life. I think that we should pay our teachers more, because without teachers, where does every other profession come from? I believe that there are so many issues, and I'm happy that you are here with us tonight. Gary, what are 2 issues that are near and dear to you?
Well, I can tell you 2 things that annoy me to no end. Okay. It annoys me the way we as a country have utilized the concept of welfare to perpetuate what I think are not good societal behaviors. And when I say welfare, I'm not talking merely about what some people quote as the person that's being downtrodden, that's in a breadline taking advantage of something like that. That's baloney. It's also on the other end. It's also corporate welfare. It's oil depletion allowances. It's these tax breaks that are unconscionable, that allow the concentration of wealth so that there isn't sufficient wealth to, quote, trickle down, if you will. So to me, I think that it would be less of a burden on us as individuals and taxpayers if we were to have a more equitable system that still maintained social services systems to allow those in need to either pull themselves up by their bootstraps, or if they need continual assistance, to allow them to get continual assistance, but also to not have to say to a large oil company that you get a double, basically get a double tax break. You get to decrease the amount of oil that you don't have anymore in the ground, and then still get a depletion allowance on your asset at the same time. A corporate buyout to say, okay, if you build your plant here, we'll give you a $1 billion tax credit or multi-million-dollar tax credit based on a local and whatever. So that's one thing that really annoys me. It also annoys me, and this is not something that'll be in my, it annoys me that we even talk about black and brown and color and white issues. I look forward to the day that it's just not an issue at all, that I don't even jokingly refer to my wonderful, beautiful Honduran Jewish grandchildren, that they're just my grandchildren, that my daughter-in-law is my daughter-in-law, my son is my son, and so forth. So those are the things that annoy me. And if I could wave a magic wand, I think that's the dream that we should, as a country, go forward to work together in concert. That's my attitude. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Sarah, real quick, what are your two issues? We have about 3 minutes left.
Well, first of all, Mr. Ramirez kind of took some of my top issues, so I definitely second everything that he said. But the two that I'm going to mention are mass incarceration and economic justice. So mass incarceration, we incarcerate in this country more people than any other country in the world for longer periods of time than most other countries in the world, with no sense of rehabilitation or how we're going to reincorporate these people back into society so that they can have successful lives and be contributing members of our society. We are literally incarcerating people by the hundreds of thousands. And in Florida, our rates are even higher than in the rest of the country. And so that's incredibly destabilizing to our country and to particularly communities of color. So that's sort of an issue that's near and dear to me, particularly as a criminal defense attorney. The other one is economic justice. There is no reason in the country as wealthy as we are that there should be people living at the levels of poverty that we have. There are answers to these questions. There's no way that you can tell me that people have to live on the street and that there aren't reasonable solutions to that don't involve breaking our economy. I think it's a more of an issue of people wanting to deal with it than an issue of people not being able to deal with it. And I think that that's just something, if we are going to live up to the ideals of this country, then we have to consider the people who have nothing.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much for joining me tonight in this tonight's town hall. I'm very appreciative of your time. My name is Ellison. I've been your host of our town hall tonight. If you are moved by the conversation that we have had here tonight, then please get involved with our campaign. You can find us at AllenEllisonForFlorida.com. You can also find us at Allen Ellison for Florida Facebook, Allen L. Ellison Twitter, Allen L. Ellison Instagram, and just get involved with the process. This campaign is about improving the quality of life for everyone. We are all about unity, and our campaign's theme is United for Florida. We want to bring people together. We want to make sure that everyone is represented. And when I look around this state and when I look around this country, I can only see the fact that there are haves and there are have-nots, and the vast majority are the have-nots. These individuals have not representation in Florida's Senate from people like Marco Rubio or Rick Scott or Greg Steube or Ron DeSantis. Just have no representation. We need Medicare for all. We need to decriminalize cannabis. We need to make sure that our brothers and sisters who are on disability, that they keep their disability. We need to make sure that people who are disabled are able to get disability benefits. We need to make sure that teachers are paid the rate that they need to be paid so that they can continue to teach our sons and our daughters in these schools. We need to make sure that college debt is erased. And as senator, that is one of the things that I will work towards doing. There are so many issues here at stake, and there are so many people affected. In the past, we haven't had very much representation, and we want to change that this election. We have a long ways to go. We actually have 2 years before the election, but we wanted to start early and we wanted to start building the conversation. So we're going to continue to have these town halls, and we're going to talk about the issues that matter to you. So please subscribe to our town halls in the future. I'm pretty sure we're going to have one next month, probably around the same time, maybe the 15th of next month. But we're going to have a whole different cast of panelists and more questions. And so we just want to make sure that everyone is represented and everyone is heard. We're going to knock down all of these branding tactics that have plagued Democrats, and we're going to make sure that people truly understand the party that has been benefiting them, whether they know it or not. I want to thank you all so much for your time. You all have a wonderful evening. Continue to be safe, socially distance yourselves, and wash your hands. But more importantly, make sure that you're not putting your hands in your mouth when you haven't washed them, and make sure that your eyes are covered, because everybody's wearing masks, but no one's really covering their eyes. The mucous membrane is also a place that coronavirus can get in. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is safe. You have a happy holiday season, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.